Hello everyone, my name is Germa Pimentel. I'm a teacher in the Diplomado Intensivo de Inglés para Docentes. I work at Urania Montas Center and today I'm going to talk about Unit 5 from Interchange 3, the Green Book. I hope that you find this video interesting and helpful, so let's move on. Well, as I told you, we are going to talk about Unit 5. The name of the unit is Expanding Your Horizons. The grammar structure that you need to use for this part of the unit is noun phrases containing relative clauses. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about it, and I'm going to give you some examples so you have a clear idea on how to use it. So let's move on. So guys, before we start, I would like to ask you this question right here. The question is, how would you feel if you have to move abroad? How would you feel if you have to move to a completely different country with a different culture, leave your family behind? So how would you feel about it? In my case, I feel enthusiastic about meeting a lot of new people and visiting new places. However, I feel a little worried about the local food. So I would like to know, how would you feel about it? I would like to answer that question to yourselves, all right? Now let's continue. Continue, guys. First, we need to know what's a relative clause. Well, here you have the answer to that question. A relative clause is a subordinate clause that modifies a noun or a noun phrase and contains a relative pronoun. Dominicans are people who always have a smile drawn on their face. That's the example, right? So the noun Dominicans is modified by the relative clause who always have a smile drawn on their face. Relative clauses give essential information to define or identify the person or thing we are talking about. So the relative clause is the part of the sentence that contains the relative pronoun. And a relative clause gives extra or essential information about the person, the thing, or the place that we are talking about. I think that you are a little bit familiar with the term relative clauses. However, I wanted to give you that information so you refresh the term, all right? So let's continue. Well, as you can see here, guys, we can introduce a relative clause with a relative pronoun. For example, who, whom, which, that, and whose. We use who and whom when we are referring to people, which when we are referring to something or to an object, that when we are referring to an object or to a person, and whose when we are referring to a possession. Example, the man who is standing there is a famous writer. We use the relative pronoun who because we are referring to a person, right? Now, we can also introduce a relative clause using a relative adverb. For example, we have where, when, and why. The restaurant where I have dinner is nice. We use the relative adverb where because we are referring to a place. We are referring to a restaurant. Let's move on, guys. Well, guys, now that you have a clear idea of what relative clauses are, it's time to talk about noun phrases containing relative clauses, which is the grammar structure that you need to use for this part of the unit, right? Here you have some examples that can be found on page 31 of your student's book. Remember that the situation we are talking about is if I moved abroad, if I moved to a different country, right? Now, something really important that I want you to take into consideration is that you can use the noun phrase as the object or as the subject of the sentence, and the message that you want to deliver is not going to change. Here you have some examples. The first one is, something that I'd be worried about is the local food. Here we are using the noun phrase as the subject of the sentence. The noun phrase containing relative clauses is something that I'd be worried about. Now, you can also use it as the object of the sentence. For example, the local food is something that I'd be worried about. As you can see, the message is the same. It doesn't matter if you use a noun phrase as the object or as the subject of the sentence. The message is not going to change, right? Another example is, One thing that I really miss is hanging out with my friends, or hanging out with my friends is something that I really miss. So, as I told you, the message is the same, whether you use the noun phrase as the object or as the subject of the sentence. And I also want you to notice that the relative pronoun is in parentheses, and this is because it is optional to use it. So it's not obligatory to make use of it, okay? Let's move on, guys. So let's suppose, guys, that you're having a conversation with someone and that person asks you, if you had to move to a new city, how would you feel about it? Of course, you're going to answer depending on how would you feel, right? But here I have some examples for you to have a clearer idea on how to use noun phrases containing relative clauses. Something that I feel worried about is not finding a good job, or my mom's cooking is something that I really miss. Or one thing I'd be really enthusiastic about is making new friends. So you're going to answer that question using noun phrases containing relative clauses. Now, something really important that you should take into consideration is that we are making use of the modal verb would. And that's because we are talking about an imaginary situation, a hypothetical situation. If I moved abroad or if I moved to a different city. So that's a situation that is not real, that is an imaginary situation. And that's why we are using the auxiliary verb or the modal verb would. Well, guys, it's time to practice, and you are going to practice the grammar by answering this question right here. I would like you to answer that question for yourselves, or you can also write them down in your notebook, right? So let's suppose that you have to move abroad. What's something you would miss? What is something you would feel enthusiastic about? What is something that you would feel concerned by? Or what's something that you would feel nervous about? Or what is something that you would be afraid of? So I want you to write down your answers on your notebook or answer them for yourselves, right? Making use of the grammar, which is noun phrases containing relative clauses. So guys, I really hope that you found this video helpful and interesting. And if you have any doubt, you have my email address at the beginning of the video, so you can just send me an email. If you think that or you consider that I can help you with anything, I'm at your complete disposal, right? Now, there is something that I want to share with you before we finish, and it is a quote. So take a look at it. Well, guys, it says, there are no shortcuts to any place worth going. It was said by Beverly Seals. It means that nothing that is worth working for is going to be easy, right? So work hard and do your best. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope that you found this video interesting and helpful. See you later.